Morning guys, I'm the Tech Prepper. Hope you're all doing well. So today we're going to do an after action report on that targeted contact I did from Arizona all the way to the Arctic Circle. And it was a rough one, but I did learn a lot. There was actually a few things that I did know and should have known better and didn't do for this particular contact. So anyways, we're going to talk about the timeline. We're going to talk about all the stations involved. We're going to talk about what I learned, what I would do differently next time, and some changes I've already made. And there's also some new gear that's not necessarily amateur radio related. So definitely stick around. I'll put timestamps down below for everything. For those of you guys who are new to the channel, I have this little series called No Random Contacts, and that's where I try to establish targeted comms with a known person in my group. And I try to do it at various distances, anywhere from the community all the way through the city, the county, the state, the region, the nation. And this is the first time I have done an international contact where I wanted to purposefully make comms with somebody else and do it on voice, not digital. Digital actually would have been fairly easy. So let's talk about how this all happened. But before we get into that, there were some constraints. Unlike my other videos, I did not have the ability to plan everything the way that I normally like to, which actually was good. That's actually going to be a real world constraint. So I had to work around Aaron's kind of operating windows and the equipment he had with him. So let's talk about the who. So this is my buddy Aaron, Victor Alpha, Zulu, Zulu Alpha, and he had planned a trip to the Arctic Circle. He's essentially on Cambridge Bay on Nunavut. I believe that's the territory or region in Canada, and it's located on Victoria Island. From my location, it's about a 2,400 mile haul point to point. So the goal was for basically us to use our equipment. So let's jump into a little timeline here because there were two prior attempts before we actually were fully successful in the video you saw last week. So Aaron sent me a bunch of photos, and one of them, it looks like he's basically on Mars, and no, that's not the case. The installation behind him is part of NWS, the North Warning System, and it's responsible for providing basically detections of inbound missiles to North America. So really cool stuff. I mean, what a trip that must have been. Let's jump right into the timeline. So we tried 3 different times over 3 days. The first one was unplanned. So on Thursday, September 5th, I was watching television. It was a bachelor night for me, and I received a text message from Aaron indicating, hey, are you near an HF radio? And I said, sure, why not? And he mentioned that he was in the Arctic Circle and that he had a remote deployment set up and he wanted to make a quick contact. So he picked a quick frequency. I threw out his call, and he was actually able to copy me. Unfortunately, when he came back to me, I had him at about a 3x1. He was so far in the noise that it really wasn't a great contact. We tried for a little bit and we kind of just gave up, and we agreed to try again the following day. So what I have to tell you is that I used the station right behind me. It was the IC 7200 running 100 watts, and it was using the Chameleon Cha Lefts 8010. And my antennas are set up to exploit NVIS propagation. So unlike most traditional amateur radio operators who love chasing DX, love these long distance contacts like we were trying to do ad hoc, that's not how my equipment is set up. I am set up more for emergency communication, where my intent is to do regional comms. So everything from the Southwest region all the way to my community is how I am set up. So partial success on that one, rough copy. The big issue was the antenna system and the high noise floor. So in terms of Aaron's station, he actually had a pretty cool setup. It was very much a kind of MacGyvered rig setup. So he improvised a 33-foot wooden mast out of scrap wood that was out there. For the antenna, he was running my TTP link dipole, but just the first 20-meter section. And then for the radio, he was running the Yaesu 857D man pack with the arm lock frames in my bag. So kind of twin setup when I actually go in the field as well. Now that antenna was not appropriate for this operation. Both because I brought it as well for the outing you saw last time, and then he ran it obviously the entire time. And that antenna was designed for, again, to exploit NVIS propagation, but also work within the constraints of the Sonoran Desert, where we don't have trees and sometimes I don't have a mast. So all the modeling for that antenna was designed to have about an 8-foot apex with 4 to 6 foot on the ends. And This was based on a base design from Tim N9 SAB, which was this 20-40 meter. But we cut it with the intent of really just working 40 meters, 60 meters, 75, and 80 meters so that we can exploit NVIS propagation. You typically don't see NVIS propagation because of the muff in frequencies above the 40 meter band. So the 20 meter section I had never really used. It was always just kind of something that was there. So I think that probably was a mistake on both of our parts. But again, he had that antenna with him, so that's what we had to use. So kudos to Aaron for improvising that rig, and then he even had a cool shelter at the bottom since he actually was in an environment that required probably protection from the wind and the elements. That morning what I decided to do was just take a look at what propagation might look like, and actually worked out kind of well by coincidence. So the first thing you'll notice here is that I've got my MCOM tools application up and running. No, this is not ready for release yet, but you can see the haul here is 2,446 miles from New River, Arizona to Cambridge Bay at a bearing of 4 degrees. I hopped over at the coffee shop that morning before work and went to voacap.com/HF. I put in our locations, our antennas, basically that were running dipoles at a certain height, and the prediction did not look good. And it makes sense based on our experience the day before. So at best, for 20 meters, we're looking at basically it opening up around 0,100, 0,200, and 0,300, which was our window on the 20 meter band. So we're looking at maybe a 60% chance of success. And for VOACAP, I put in that we're both running 100 watts and we're using single sideband. Here's a better graph of it as well. And the area in purple, you can kind of see here, we're looking at 50% at basically those first 3 hours UTC time. And then we have a steep drop off. So it actually worked out that he had pinged me at 8 p.m. So not a whole lot of other bands that were really any good. In green, 40 meters opened up a bit later, which would have been too late for me. And then kind of cool, on my side, I've been experimenting for a while because I'm an off-grid operator doing everything offline, and part of my MCOM tool suite, which I'll be working on the whole month of October and part of November. I've taken some old VOACAP Linux work that was done and added some secret sauce, and you can also see here on the output, it takes my geolocation, Aaron's geolocation, and on 20 meters we have basically C's going from 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 to 0.400, so it roughly maps to the online version. So our window is probably a good window based on those metrics alone. So the second thing I decided to do that morning, and granted I had a work day, right? This was unplanned. I had to do this really quickly. During lunch, I decided to set up a second antenna because I had that roughly S5 noise floor with the child lefts, and I was not about to reorient to that thing. That thing is a permanent fixture at my house. So for better or for worse, all I had time for was to take my POTA 20 carbon fiber mast, drop it in an area where I actually have supports built into a cinder block wall, and basically put up the 20 meter link dipole, my dipole, which again was not appropriate for this use. And then what I did do is decide to put it like a V-beam. I didn't terminate it, but I did do a V-beam, and I did point it at that 4 degrees. And we'll talk a little bit about how that actually helped a little bit. The other thing I decided to do was bring in some locals in the Southwest to participate and help out. We coordinated a little bit over the intermounted intertie system. And then I had one buddy who actually has a powerhouse station here in Arizona, and that's Paul W7CQQ. He's got a 60-foot tower. His antenna is impressive. I'll have to look this up, but it is a JK Navasa 5 that covers 10 meters through 20 meters. He's a huge DXer. I mean, he's got a command station. It's impressive. So I let him know, gave him the primary and the secondary frequency that we're going to use on 20 meters. And sure enough, he gets on the air and he's got a booming signal and he makes the contact, no problem. He oriented that antenna directly at Aaron's azimuth, and he tried to support me. So this is where relays are going to be important for some of the lessons for this after action report. So he actually tried to act as net control for me and help relay my traffic to Aaron and vice versa.
So I guess we're supposed to be at the top of the hour, and we'll stand by here for guest, and I hope he's able to make contact. And anyway, we'll stand by, Aaron, and let us know if we can be any help there. Go ahead. Yes, and he was calling you.
Yeah, negative copy on my end. He is in the noise.
I can't hear anybody in the West Coast, but and I can hear VE3s and VE2s, so you're probably in a better position than I am to aid Aaron, okay?
I'll do my best. Aaron, are you copying Victor Alpha 7, Zulu Zulu Alpha? This is Whiskey 7, Charlie Queen Queen.
This is what you get when you run 1.5 kilowatts, guys. I'm running 100 watts.
Yeah, I'm here. Of course, he's right up the road from me. He's 40 over S9 here, but he's having a tough time copying you right in the noise. You're just in the noise. So I noticed there is some QS Baker. The conditions seem to be coming up and down a little bit, so maybe full standby. Against and give Aaron another call. Give him a long call, and we'll stand by. Go ahead, Gaston.
For Victor Alpha 7, Zulu Zulu Alpha, portable from Kilo Tango 7, Romeo Uniform November.
Kilo Tango 7, Romeo Uniform November. Kilo Tango 7, Romeo Uniform November. This is Victor Alpha 7, Zulu Alpha. Victor Alpha 7, Zulu Alpha. I have you S-clear and perfectly guided clear. Over.
Aaron, if you're coming back to me, I have you a 2x1 QSL.
2x1 QSL. Victor Zulu Alpha for Romeo Uniform November. To the top, Uniform.
Go, Gaston, go.
Sorry, Paul, I can't copy anything he's saying, so I'm going to hand it back over to you as net control. Kilo Tango 7, Romeo Uniform November. Thanks for taking the reins.
So I actually used both antennas. I used both the child lefts, which was not appropriate, and I also used my dipole, which was not appropriate, but better. And mine actually had an S4 noise floor, which is a little bit lower compared to the S5 of the Chameleon. Either way, Aaron was able to copy me, but I cannot hear him. So really what I thought was, okay, that relay was great. It's great that he can hear me. The next thing I need to do is improve my location. So we decided to coordinate, and again, I had a busy schedule, and I planned to do a nighttime operation on Monday because we had to hit that same window, even if it was only 60% at 8 p.m. local time, 0300 UTC. So we planned to go back out Monday, and the goal there was to improve my location and drop my noise floor from an S4 down to a lot lower. And I actually did. I was able to get it down to about an S2, which it was exactly the goal of observing good amateur practices of improving your location. So that operation Monday night is what you guys saw in the video. And again, I had constraints of work and all that stuff. So I decided to leave with a friend of mine at 6 p.m. local time, 2 hours before our window. And we decided to throw in an X factor. Actually, it was a forced X factor where we had to go to the National Forest and we were going to be operating in the dark. I usually do not hike in the dark. I do stay over quite a bit, so this was a new experience. So we hiked out. It was only about 1.5 miles, but it took us 45 minutes with our terrain to get there, and it left us with about 1 hour and 15 minutes to set up. And I wanted to start really quickly with the antenna setup. And I used the POTA 20 carbon fiber mast, and since I typically don't use a dipole with that mast, there was a wicked bend at the top, so I lost some height, and more height is better for the DX communication. But again, it was what it was. I was using my TTP Link dipole on 20 meters, which wasn't perfect. But we got that set up and then decided to do some filming, some B-roll, all that good stuff. We had a quick beer, and then we decided to jump on the air about 30 minutes early. So at 7:30 p.m. local time, 0230 Zulu time. and we actually made that contact. He heard me better than I heard him. I got him at about at times a 4x1 down to about a 3x1, but we made it happen. The interesting thing with this operation was at this point we were pretty much fully in the dark. The headlamps, the red headlamp in particular setting, was very helpful for manipulating the controls on the radio. But the other thing that was helpful was a unknown relay. We were able to establish contact with another station in Canada. Actually, it was one Richard. He is Victor Alpha 7 Romeo Lima Whiskey, and he's part of a club, and the club station was there as well. You kind of heard their call. It was Victor Echo 7 Sierra Charlie Charlie. So between those guys, they could hear me, they could hear Aaron, and they provided really great support as a relay. So bottom line here is, on single sideband voice, we were kind of able to make it happen. I had a hard time copying Aaron. The use of both the local relay the day before and then the use of the regional relays in Canada absolutely helped. So that's something I think I'm going to incorporate into future plans, is doing prediction where I can actually have intermediate systems that I have a good path to, and then the remote station also has a good path as a backup. Before we get into kind of the gear changes I'm going to be making, one other thing that was kind of cool that had never occurred to me was the fact that I was unable to easily recover my antenna system, you know, at 9:30 p.m. because it was pitch dark and there was cactus and everything all around. I could have done it if I needed to, but it was really nice leaving it and then making sure I would be the first person to go back to that campsite the following morning. So that may be a technique, leaving some gear behind. In the future, people were telling me to probably invest in some PV14, some night vision. So I might borrow one first from a few friends to see how that goes before I make an investment, because that's several thousands of dollars. But the recovery was actually kind of cool because it allowed us to basically take the man pack, drop it in the ruck, and just do the 1.5 miles in the dark. And the red headlamp setting was absolutely amazing. My partner doesn't do too much hiking. Actually, my friend, not my partner. I'm straight dude. But anyways, my buddy was with me, and he had just a normal kind of cheapo lamp from Walmart, and it just had that white setting. So he was blowing out his night vision and mine when he would look at me. So red lamp is a great one. This may seem odd. I've held off for over 2.5 years in buying Cry Precision pants. I saw these for the first time when my buddy Frosty invited me to the American Milsim event, and I'm like, wow, these guys are a bunch of LARPers. Well, I'll tell you what, as someone who spends a lot of time in the backcountry, my Costco Kirkland pants that I've been wearing for 4 years while they were like 14 bucks and still alive, they provide no protection to my knees. I'm constantly up and down. Our terrain is rough and rocky, and there's cholla and needles. And I don't need any of that macho bullshit. You know, my uncle growing up told me, don't be a sissy, you don't need trekking poles, you don't need this stuff. Much older in life, he said, hey, I was wrong. So I broke down about 3 months ago, spent 300 bucks, yeah, 300 bucks on Cry Precision pants, have the knee pads added to them. It's absolutely amazing. Not only the ability to have lots of pockets here, but just the ability to take a knee is something that I will do now in comfort, and it's just going to be a tool that's going to help me be more effective and not damage my bodies. Okay, so let's talk about the dipole. Yeah, my TTP MCOM Link dipole, at least for 20 meters, was not suited for this application. So this weekend I went out, I took my Cobra head connector that I did a hot little paint job on and put together a quick 20 meter dipole. And not only is it for 20 meters, but I actually cut this for the high portion of the band because we were operating at 14.337. So the ability to build a purpose-built antenna is absolutely something that I need to do even when I have constraints of time for a last-minute thing. So it was really no big deal and fairly lightweight and inexpensive to construct. So I wish I had done that, but I have one now, at least for the high portion of the 20 meter band. This is a kit that I'm working on for a small batch release, and it's using my traditional bag design here. But this is the new kit that I'm actually incorporating for my field work. So I've got some Velcro straps here, and in the bag I've got a couple things here. So of course I've got the POTA 20. If I ever had to do DX again, I think I would go with the POTA 33 footer, the 10 meter one that's coming out. I put on a couple of Ranger bands, and I found these 18-inch ground stakes on Amazon and then painted mine for the desert. So this piece actually will nest inside of this base cap here, and this is something I'm working on with Jim, Kilo 8 Delta Delta Victor. He's got a large 3D printed kit, but I wanted one specifically to what I do. So I've been using this for a couple years now, and it's basically a cup that sits at the bottom. I drilled a hole in mine. The new design is going to have a whole 10mm hole built in, and then you could just drop this in, so you'll have kind of the stake system ready to go. And I'm going to do a video next on how I actually will deploy this in the field. The second part of the kit is in this little bag. I was trying to do a tool roll, but it just didn't work out, so I'm using my old antenna bag. So Jim, with the carbon fiber mast, the Soda Carbon 6, had designed basically a variation of that kit, and I reused it for this exercise. The problem is that I used the section that kind of nested at 8 feet, and it caused a little bit of bend for this particular outing. So when I got back and did kind of the tuning on a weekend exercise, I looked at all of the other parts that he had sent me, and he had a guy ring set for 11 feet 4 inches for the Carbon 6 mast, my older mast. Turns out this one sits at 14 feet 8 inches. And when I did a deployment with this guy and about 20 feet of paracord, the sucker was straight as can be with the dipole on top. So the kit that I'm working on with Jim is actually going to include these two components specifically designed for the POTA 20. And then just running, you know, 3 tent stakes that I also painted along with the carabiner clips, 3 lengths of 20-foot paracord. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about how I prep my cord, all the nuts I use, and how I do the deployment. So this is something you're going to see on the channel. And guys, I just want to say I had a blast with this one. I wish that I could have done the planning a little bit differently and owned it completely. I'm a control freak, but it was really good to be able to work around somebody else's gear, equipment, operating location, and kind of have to work with band conditions. Like I said, incorporating relays is something I'm going to do moving forward, incorporating digital, and then now that we've got basically improving our kit for the field as best we can while not going absolutely crazy is things that I'm going to take into the future. So with that said, guys, I want to say thank you to the Buy Me a Coffee guys. I've got a little bit of news. I was able to secure 7 weeks off. That time will be dedicated to MCOM Tools Community R3, and I could not have done this without the contributions of the Buy Me a Coffee guys. So thank you so much. Starting the entire month of October, going into the first 2 weeks of November, I'm going to be spending 50 hours per week, and I'm going to get MCOM Tools R3 out for the members. It's going to be for the community, but most of the member content is going to be for those guys as a thank you. So appreciate all of you. For all of you guys in YouTube land, appreciate you guys too. You're awesome. Be strong, be safe, and be prepared. Oh, and also don't forget to experiment. Like I said, you can do a whole lot with less, you know. The other stations out there that were helping me had massive stations. They were both running 1 kilowatt of power, had giant antennas. At the end of the day, even though it was rough copy, we made it happen with 100 watts, a wire, and operating in austere environments. All right, take it easy, guys.